Hello Rusty developers. Today we are going to build on our code that we have written in the last video, which is nothing but our quiz system. We have already created a CLI quiz system, so if you're here for the first time and you are seeing this huge amount of code, don't worry about it. There is a whole video which is part 1 about it. But today we are going to move further. So let's take a step ahead. But first what we're going to do is that I just encountered a problem in my code that you see, even though I'm answering 7, it says your answer is not correct. Do you know what the problem is? Let's figure it out together. So if we go to our Visual Studio Code to figure out the problem, we know that the problem somewhere lies in the answer. So the easiest way to find a problem is in any language, use print if you can. And that's a really great form of logging. And I use print a lot. There is no shame in it to use print, right? To do with debugging. It's the most simplest form of debugging. So if I print my answer and I just use cargo run now, so it's building, everything is waiting, everything is waiting on shared package data, because whenever basically you run something, it also wants your file lock. So this always correct. So your answer is Rust and your answer is correct. But if I write 4 here, uh, your answer is still Rust. So you see, so the answer value is not changing from the previous iteration. So to fix this, what we do is that we know that our answer is a string, right? So here we write answer.clear. So basically after every entry, your answer will get cleared, and this is how the error should be fixed. So let's test it again, and is it fixed or not? And then we write again 7, and you know that the answer is 7 and your answer is correct. Perfect. Now, let's see what the today's plan is. First thing, we are going to learn how to create functions, because we cannot write everything on main like for the whole class, right? So we have to create smaller function like going to a modular approach. So the first thing we are going to learn in function in today's video, and the second thing we are going to learn the hash map. Why I am going to use a hash map is because of the very simple reason. Like currently, if you run the program every time, it's possible that you're answering the same question every time you run the code, which we don't want. So I want that maybe if I run the code for the first time, so I just see the questions, like for example first two, and then the questions are not repeated. So in our case, if I'm just checking two of them, like because as this is a shuffle, this is also works the same way, but I'm using hash map because in my further videos I'm going to store my hash map into the JSON, in which basically it will help me to read the hash map at the start of the code, so I don't get my question repeated. But today we are going to limit our video just to implement a smaller hash map into our system, and that's all. We are not going to basically create the JSON thing. We are going to save it for the next video. So the first thing is to create function. How to create function? You have already created function main, which gives you a like syntactical advantage how to create a function. So you write function, right, read CSV. um, if it takes argument, obviously we will mention all the arguments here. If it doesn't take if it have a return value, basically you will mention the return value here. In our case, the return value should be request. We will see that during the code that this will be modified, but we will keep it like this for now. Okay, so basically now what we want all these things to be moved to our function. Okay, let's move them. So we do control X, we do control V, and then we basically also do like something like this. I do control X and I do control V, and then I do return questions, right? In theory this should work, right? And then basically I can have like let questions equal to read CSV. No, sorry, not read path, but read CSV equal to read CSV, and done, right? So basically what I'm going to do is that basically I'm going to read the questions and basically I'm going to read the CSV, right? I know the questions, this is showing a problem, but again, it can be solved easily and we can always create a mutable question here and this will basically solve this problem that it is showing that the question cannot be shuffled. Okay, this worked fine, but you see there's a red line on this question mark. You know, if you remember that we have discussed this question mark in the last video. So basically, if there's an error in this file, instead of writing okay, it will return like the error, right? So how do we solve this? Because we still want this question mark. The one way is to remove this question mark, but basically I don't want that. So we will return something like this, in which we know that the result is basically this thing, and then basically we are going to return the two things. And this is fine, right? Now you have seen that this is gone, but you see a questions, there is a red line beside the question. What does red line say? Because now I cannot result a question. I have to basically return a result. You see, these are like empty brackets which initially we don't know what we should return, but now we know that we should return a web quiz. So what we know, if the statement is okay, and now you basically don't need a return. Basically, you see, if the statement is okay, then we return our questions. And if it is not okay, so my questions are fine. Yeah. So if it is okay, then we return our questions. If it is not okay, we don't return anything. Now, there is one more issue which you need to study, because now what you have seen is that our result, so basically our read CSV is not directly returning you the result, but a different thing, which is called result. Now, there are two ways to do it. Either I can use basically a match to basically read the CSV out of it, or if I don't want to read the CSV out of it, I can just use my question mark. So what does my question mark says? Question mark is pretty simple. It says if everything is okay, just give me the okay value. I don't care about what the error is. So that's what this question mark is, that I'm basically getting the actual value of quiz. Now you see everything's work fine. This is how you create functions in Rust. Congratulations, you have created the first functions. Now here it says that we can also remove mutable because we are anyway not modifying questions here, and every yellow line is simply gone. Moving forward, now what I want to do is to create a hash map. Today I'm just going to introduce a hash map because it will help us to understand the hash map and like the hash set, not exactly the hash map. And then basically in the next lectures we are going to use it to basically store the CSV file into it. So let's create our first hash map. So how do we create it? So we do let mute scene numbers is equal to, we have like this hash. So should I use hash set? Let's use hash set, and then we basically call new, right? So here we have created hash set basically, which is unknown, and it is saying you error because it doesn't know which type of hash set is. So if you want to do that, you can also mention a size here, but ultimately it will figure out what you want to do. Now, to do this, we also have to do something. We have to change this for loop to a while loop, because now basically we don't want to iterate, like we don't want to shuffle and iterate it. Basically, we want a random questions from our numbers. Okay, so we are also going to use one more thing called let mute counters, because we are going to like use a while loop. So counters are really necessary, right? So, and this will be basically now changed to while counter is less than 2, then you are going to run a while loop. Moreover, if you have like if the c numbers dot contains, basically now we have to get a random value. How to create a random value? The answer is very simple. Now basically we don't need this shuffle, right? So, but this RNG variable is really powerful. So what we are going to do here is that for every loop, let mute random number is equal to RNG dot random range. And our range, do I want a random range, or do I want to use some other variable? Because I think random range could return a random number as well, and I think so. So random range. So how do you define a range here? So you give 0 and then you have to give the end of CSV basically, which is our questions dot length. Yeah, I get confused as well because I use size a lot in C++ and then I have to use length here. But fine, both mean the same. So now if scene numbers contains this value and basically I don't want a contain, so I want not contains, I can remove this thing and then I put every logic which I've seen here inside my brackets and then I shift this println and this works fine. Good. We will do it. So now basically if not value, so basically the scene number contains not contains random numbers, then basically what we do is that we access questions via something something and this is everything. Okay, perfect. Now we also do here counter plus equal to 1, so which is basically we are going to increment our count. Okay, so our print ln shows something, so it says contains is usize, arguments are incorrect, consider borrowing. Okay, then basically I can do this and I think this should go on, right? Now it says basically yes, question is out of the scope. Now we don't have questions. So what we need to do is that we need to access the question via basically brackets. There are two ways to do it. Whether for every question I basically create like I can do like this. Let question equal to questions and then I can access it by index. So basically the random number and then I'm done. And then basically for every question is valid, question should be quiz and everything works correctly. Fine. So we don't have any errors here. I think everything should work as it should be and then we should be good to go. So let's see if everything works or not. Okay. So we do cargo.run and it says could not compile quiz system due to one previous error to one experiment. So it says we have a slice random which is not used and basically I is not found. Fine, because previously we were using slice random here, so we can actually delete it and we are not reading any files, so we can actually also delete this. And here it says that I is not found because obviously now the I doesn't exist. So we will just remove this I as well. Or if you want, we can always use like we have counter with us. So we can use counter plus 1 because counters start from 0 and basically we don't want our questions to be like question 0 or question 1. We can be starting from question 1. Now this makes more sense. Now we do CLS and now we do again cargo.run and now everything's fixed. So it says that type must be known, let mute scene numbers hash to new means actually scene numbers yeah, scene number still doesn't know its type because we haven't inserted anything to the scene number. Very good. So you see the compiler is so powerful that it is able to find all these stupid errors. So I basically insert whatever I'm finding here to my random number and I close it, right? So now C number error should be gone because yeah, but it now it shows that it has a question of move occurs because of quiz which doesn't implement copy. So you see that the problem is that in Rust, the best thing about Rust is that if you don't have specifically have a copy, it will always move. So basically when you are doing like questions random numbers, you're trying to access a particular index from the question vector. Instead of copying automatically, it will move, right? And this is what your error is. So what you need to do is that you already have deserialize and everything. You need to implement a clone method here. So clone is nothing but basically a different type of trait here, clone, which will help you to basically get a clone here, and this will implement your basically your copy. So basically you're making a copy of your variable, right? And this need not to be mutable because random number is anyway overwritten every time, so you don't need it to be a mutable variable. Fine. Now we can run it again, and now basically there are something, but it is fine. Then we give the answer 9 and we give the answer 4. and it says your answer is correct. But I know that currently it must be very like not why, like you are like why I'm using C numbers for here, but you will see that in the further video I'm going to store the C numbers, basically hash map, into a JSON file, and then I'm going to read it at the start. So every time basically when you store it, you know that what questions you have done, and the next time when you try to read it, basically you already know that what questions have you done, so your questions are not repeated again. But if I do it in the current video, and this would video could go really long and boring, which I really don't want to do, and that's why next video. So please like and subscribe if you are here for the first time and you haven't watched the first video. I would really recommend so that you can understand the rest of the code. And then I will see you in the next video. Till then, have a nice day.